Welcome to the most dysfunctional family in human history. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Greek mythology. Now, before we begin, I need you to understand one very important thing. When most people hear the word mythology, they picture noble gods sitting on clouds dispensing wisdom and justice. That is not what we're dealing with. Greek mythology is less like a religion and more like an entire civilization collectively asking, what if every person in charge was completely unqualified, and then writing stories about the results? The Greeks looked at thunderstorms, earthquakes, droughts, war, disease, love, death, and fate itself, and decided, there must be powerful beings controlling these things. Fair enough. Reasonable conclusion. The problem started when they gave those powerful beings personalities. Because once they did that, everything immediately went off the rails. Today isn't about one specific myth. Today is about meeting the cast. Because before we can talk about heroes, monsters, and quests, you need to understand who keeps creating all these problems. And spoiler alert, it's usually the gods. Now, before there was Zeus, before there was Olympus, before there was humanity, there was chaos. Not chaos as in disorder. Chaos as in literally the empty void. Nothing. No sky. No oceans. No mountains, no stars, just cosmic emptiness, which is already a strange start, because most mythologies begin with some all-powerful creator. The Greeks looked at the question of creation and said, what if existence itself just sort of wandered into the room? And honestly, that's about the level of planning you'll find throughout the rest of Greek mythology. From chaos came primordial beings, earth, sky, darkness, night, various concepts, because apparently abstract ideas can have children in Greek mythology. Just accept it. Fighting the logic only makes it stronger. Before the Olympians, there were the Titans. Think of them as the original management team. And like many management teams throughout history, they immediately developed serious family issues. The leader was Cronus. Now, Cronus received a prophecy. And if there's one thing you need to know about Greek mythology, it's that prophecies have a 100% success rate. You cannot avoid them. You cannot outsmart them. You cannot negotiate with them. You certainly cannot ignore them. Yet, every character tries. Every single time. Cronus learns one of his children will overthrow him. Reasonable concern. How does he solve this problem? By eating his children, not raising them, not mentoring them, not building a healthy family relationship. He chooses the strategy of a malfunctioning garbage disposal. And somehow this becomes important later. Eventually, his wife gets tired of watching babies disappear, which is understandable. So when Zeus is born, she tricks Cronus into swallowing a rock instead. And I need everyone to appreciate how ridiculous this is. The king of the universe, ruler of the Titans, master of creation, cannot distinguish between a newborn child and landscaping material. That's our starting point. That's where we're beginning. Zeus grows up in secret, returns, forces Cronus to cough up his siblings, which raises approximately 17 medical questions, and then starts a war. Because in Greek mythology, every family disagreement eventually becomes a military campaign. This war is called the Titanomachy, and it lasts 10 years. 10 years. Imagine the biggest family argument you've ever witnessed. Now give both sides immortality and magical powers. That's the Titanomachy. Mountains are being thrown. Lightning is flying. Reality itself is having a difficult day. Eventually, Zeus wins. The Titans lose, and the Olympians take control. Now, normally, this would be the part where everyone learns from history and creates a better future. Instead, they become Greek gods. Let's start with the CEO himself. Zeus, king of Olympus, god of the sky, master of thunder, destroyer of common sense. Now, to be fair, Zeus is actually a competent ruler. The universe mostly functions under his leadership. The seasons happen. The sun rises. Reality remains intact. These are not insignificant accomplishments. The problem is everything else. Imagine if your local mayor was genuinely excellent at governing, but also generated 3 national scandals every week. That's Zeus. Half of Greek mythology consists of heroes fixing problems Zeus accidentally created, because he saw someone attractive and forgot he was responsible for maintaining cosmic order. Entire kingdoms rise and fall because Zeus couldn't spend 10 seconds considering the consequences of his actions. And this becomes a recurring theme. By the way, you're going to hear a lot about Zeus transforming into animals. A swan, a bull, an eagle, various other things. At some point, the ancient Greeks stopped asking whether this was a good idea. They simply accepted it. Imagine explaining this to somebody from another mythology. Oh, your chief god controls lightning? That's cool. Our chief god also disguises himself as livestock. What? Don't worry about it. And somehow Zeus remains the most powerful being in the room despite making decisions that would get a medieval king laughed out of his own castle. Then we have Hera, queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, and arguably the most patient woman in recorded mythology. Now, if you've heard stories about Hera being angry all the time, there's a reason. Imagine spending eternity married to Zeus. Every morning you wake up wondering, what international incident has he caused today? Hera doesn't spend her myths creating problems. She spends most of them reacting to problems that already exist. Unfortunately, her methods tend to involve making everybody else's life significantly worse. Think of her as the world's angriest HR representative. Next is Poseidon, god of the sea, earthquakes, storms, and horses. Again, nobody knows why horses. The Greeks simply looked at the ocean and said, you know what belongs here? Horses. Poseidon is basically Zeus if Zeus had less authority and more emotional volatility. If you offend Poseidon, your day is ruined. If you really offend Poseidon, your decade is ruined. Ask Odysseus. Actually, don't. The man is still complaining. It's easy to laugh at Poseidon until you remember most Greeks lived near the sea. Imagine your economy depends entirely on sailing. Now imagine every storm is potentially caused by a supernatural being holding a grudge. Suddenly sacrificing a goat starts looking like reasonable insurance. That's the world these people lived in. Now, let's talk about Hades, the most unfairly judged member of the family. Everybody assumes Hades is the villain. He's not. He's the manager. The afterlife has millions of souls arriving constantly. Somebody has to organize that. Meanwhile, Zeus and Poseidon are upstairs, turning the Mediterranean into a workplace safety violation. Hades mostly stays in his lane, handles his responsibilities, rarely causes problems, which in Greek mythology practically qualifies him for sainthood. Athena is wisdom, strategy, knowledge, civilization, planning, the concept of thinking before acting, a revolutionary idea on Olympus. Athena emerges from Zeus's forehead fully grown and armed, which sounds impressive until you remember nobody involved thought this required medical attention. Athena is constantly helping heroes, because heroes desperately need supervision. Without Athena, many famous Greek heroes would have died before reaching chapter 3. Then we have Ares, god of war, not strategy, not tactics, not leadership, just violence. Ares is essentially every bad military decision ever made given divine form. Athena represents disciplined warfare. Ares represents kicking down the front gate and hoping everything works out. Spoiler alert, it usually doesn't. Aphrodite is beauty, love, desire, and catastrophic decision-making. Because whenever Aphrodite gets involved, logic immediately packs its bags and leaves. The Trojan War? Partially her fault. Relationship drama? Probably her fault. Somebody making an obviously terrible romantic choice? Definitely her department. If Ares starts wars through violence, Aphrodite starts them through relationships. Oddly enough, her success rate is much higher. Apollo is what happens when a mythology creates a favorite child. He's the god of the sun, music, medicine, poetry, archery, prophecy, healing, truth, and several other things. The Greeks just kept assigning jobs to Apollo until somebody finally said, I think that's enough. Apollo's response was probably, no, give me one more. His twin sister Artemis is the goddess of hunting and wilderness. Unlike many Olympians, Artemis generally knows exactly what she's doing, which makes her stand out. Imagine attending a family reunion where everyone is actively causing disasters. Then one relative shows up prepared, organized, and competent. That's Artemis. Hermes is the messenger god. He's fast, clever, resourceful, and probably running 3 scams while delivering important messages. Hermes is everyone's favorite cousin, not because he's trustworthy, but because he's entertaining. Then there's Hephaestus, the engineer, the blacksmith, the inventor, the only god actually creating useful things. Everybody else is busy arguing. Hephaestus is building automated servants, legendary weapons, and technological marvels thousands of years before anybody invents a screwdriver. Frankly, he deserved better co-workers. Finally, we have Dionysus, god of wine, celebration, madness, theater, chaos, and having absolutely no interest in behaving normally. Dionysus is proof that even the Greeks occasionally looked at their mythology and said, "You know what this needs? More insanity." And somehow they were correct. So there they are, the Olympians, the most powerful family in existence. Together, they rule the universe. Separately, they create most of the problems we'll be discussing for the next several months. In future episodes, we'll meet the heroes, the monsters, the titans, the fates, the gorgons, the minotaur, the cyclopes, the Trojans, and a truly astonishing number of people who receive prophecies and immediately make everything worse. Because Greek mythology isn't really about gods. It's about people, their fears, their hopes, their flaws, their ambitions, just exaggerated to cosmic proportions. And no mythology has ever been better at turning bad decisions into legendary stories. So next time we're going to look at the Titans, the original rulers of a universe, and the family tree that somehow makes the Olympians look well-adjusted, which is genuinely impressive. Until then, remember, if someone in Greek mythology receives a prophecy, they're about to make the worst decision of their life. Every single time.